Welcome to the Stadio Faculty of Education and Humanities, School of Education. This is the introduction to the B.Ed Honours course. I welcome you all and wish you lots of success in your journey through the B.Ed Honours. I am your lecturer for this course. My name is Lauren Rembach for this module, and we are going to be unpacking and looking at a number of aspects in terms of looking at the philosophical and the theoretical theories that underpin the move to inclusive education. And we're going to be focusing on South Africa and, of course, looking at it on a global scale and international policies as well, and how these have influenced and impacted on how we are rolling out inclusive education. So, as I've said to you, the philosophical and theoretical perspectives, I'll explain that a little bit further as we move along. Just one thing to always remember and keep in mind, that inclusion is a very complex definition or concept rather, and we're going to be looking at that a lot as we move through the course in terms of how it differs in different contexts, in different spheres. It has an effect on politics, it has an effect on the economy, it has an effect on broader principles like philosophy and children's rights. So that's something that we were also going to be considering as we move through the course. So as I've said to you, philosophical and theoretical. So if we just look at some of the philosophical things, we could think about things like inclusion is both a practice and a basic underpinning of modern educational philosophy. We're going to look at things of areas of disadvantage, areas of marginalization. We're also going to look at the envisioning, the philosophical theories behind all those good values, that we want classes to be equal, and we want equitable rights for everybody in the classroom, and we want people to learn and understand, and we want choice, and we want freedom. So those would all be the principles that underpin a philosophical notion of inclusive education, and also things about principles of exclusion, why we exclude people and the reason behind it. So those are some of the aspects we will be looking at as well. On the theoretical side, we're going to be looking at all the policies, the legislation that make up inclusive education, and what South Africa has done in terms of legislating policies and where they come from. Remember, our constitution underpins social values and social justice, and that's something we'll be looking at as well. And also we'll be looking at the broad and narrow definitions of inclusion, what's happening globally, what's happening locally, and also very important to understand that there's always going to be a disjuncture or a disconnect between theory and practice. So it's all very well that we have a mandated policy, but when we look at how that mandated policy works in terms of working in the classroom or discussion inclusion, we're going to see that we're going to bump our heads, and that's what it's all about. It's all about developing rigor. So what does our module look like? It's broken up into 5 units. So the first unit, we're going to be looking at the history and philosophy of inclusive education. In unit 2, we're going to look at the theoretical policies and implementation of policy, and what the issues are about policy being implemented, what works, what doesn't work. Then in unit 3, we're going to look at the South African perspective. So there we're really going to go deeply into what is actually happening in South Africa in terms of inclusive ed. Unit 4, we're going to look at inclusive pedagogy, and of course pedagogy is teaching and the practices. How do we work with inclusion within our schools, in our classrooms? So it's a school-wide process, it's a classroom process, it's the teacher being an agent of change within the classroom. And then unit 5, that develops more into the teacher as an agent of change, the role of the teacher in developing inclusive education practice. So because this course is an online delivery, you're going to be doing involvement trackers, you're going to be working on online activities, and also we're going to be bringing you webinars as well. So as you look through and as you go through the course, you will bump into all these things that we'll be working with, and we will explain that further as we go along. There is also a study letter, and that will provide the details of the units of the module, the learning outcomes, the assessment standards, and then the assessment guide will provide all the details of assignments and tasks that we set for you throughout the module. Just to also give an idea, of course, with inclusion, Jenny Corbett's written quite a lot about inclusion. And the most important thing is that we have to realize is that a one size doesn't fit all. And that's in terms of you also as students coming into the program. Some of you have had more teaching experience than others. Some of you have just recently graduated with a BEd and now you're coming in to do inclusion. So this is what's so important about understanding this, understanding who's in the room and the diversity. So a one size doesn't fit all. And that's also in terms of you mapping out how you're going to work through the course. Of course, involvement trackers and those other activities, there are going to be deadlines. It's how you follow the deadlines, how you stick to the deadlines, and how you work out a process to manage the course as we move along. So just keep that in mind as well, because a one size fits all is something that we're going to be discussing also when we look at the different units in this module. So course expectations, I want you to please try and get as involved as much as you can. It's all about engagement. So regular and productive attendance of live lectures and webinars. You'll complete the weekly activities and involvement trackers. Please read widely. Manage and structure your time. Connect with your classmates. Share and discuss ideas. And develop a routine that works for you and your specific context. So just remember that these are things that you must really look at as you start to develop, because you'll be reading, you'll be engaging with material. Work out your time frame to see where you can fit it in. And then communication, should you wish to contact me regarding anything concerning maybe a question on an assignment or something personal that you'd like to bring forward, there is my email, laurenr@embury.ac.za. There's also the message portal on our ECI page where you can leave a general message, which of course I will also pick up. Please participate in forum discussions and webinars and collaborate with one another. Collaboration is the cornerstone of inclusion, and you'll see that when we look at the theory. We need lots of stakeholders that need to be involved with that. Also, the course is about developing professional learning communities, and that's something I want you to consider. A professional learning community is when we work together. We convene regularly and frequently during the course to engage in collaborative professional learning, to strengthen our practice and to increase our knowledge. So that is something that I'm really looking forward to throughout this module. So all I can say to you is, just as a little welcome to the course. I'm very excited to be able to lecture you. Inclusive education is my absolute passion. I think it is a moral right. It is something that we all have to embody. And you'll see on the road sign there that there's a curvy road. That's what learning is all about, and especially at a postgraduate level, we're going to come through ups and downs. We're going to go on a straight path, and sometimes we're going to go into a narrow path, or we're going to be winding along as we're learning, and that's what it's all about. And to end, I want to give you a little tip about something that I learned from Roger Slee, who is one of the very pivotal inclusive education researchers currently. And Professor Roger Slee, he says the only way that we learn or we do something is when we have to learn to smell our own sweat. And that is something that we will be doing throughout the course. It is an honors degree. There are going to be times where you might be feeling pressurized. There's a lot to cover, but please remember, we are a collaborative professional learning community. So there's always time for us to engage and discuss. So I look forward to working with you all.